No water or anything up here? Interim problems, right? Such a beautiful building. Ready? Good. Thank you all for being here. Uh, Here to announce some important reforms and actions that we'll be taking. There's no doubt that California is at an insurance crossroads. Making insurance more available is becoming critical for our entire economy. With the climate crisis coupled with historic inflation, we are truly living in unprecedented times. It is clear we cannot keep going down the same road without any action or change. I want to thank the governor for his executive order acknowledging what we already know, that urgent regulatory action is needed and we must work together on these solutions. This executive order is important for us to act with haste. I want to also thank our legislative leaders over the past months with me and my team at the Department of Insurance. In particular, I want to thank our insurance committee chairs, Senator Susan Rubio and Assemblymember Lisa Calderon. We had frank and honest discussions about the insurance challenges facing our state. Working together over the past weeks, we refined the strategy and the legislature understands how serious this situation is and the urgent need for action. Those conversations are clearly reflected in what I'm going to announce today. Effective regulation of our market requires aggressive negotiations with the industry to get the most for consumers and stabilize our market. Throwing bombs is easy, and putting out bombastic statements from entrenched interest groups doesn't benefit anyone, especially not our consumers who I have been meeting across California. Today, I'm proud to announce the largest insurance reform since voters passed Proposition 103 nearly 35 years ago. This is a comprehensive strategy to modernize our insurance market with three interlocking goals: making insurance available for Californians, creating a resilient insurance market, protecting communities from climate change. California's insurance market includes consumers, homeowners, businesses, and insurance companies. It is the nation's largest and a critical component of our state's economy. Yet the property insurance market in the country is changing quickly. As we see these headlines around the world and in our country, how did we get here? When you look at our market, the top 12 insurance groups cover 85% of the state's homeowners market. Since 2022, 7 of the top 12 insurance groups have paused or restricted new business. This is despite rate increases approved or currently pending in the Department of Insurance. So clearly, this problem is complex and global in nature, affecting us here at home, of course, very uniquely as the largest insurance market in the country. Over the past 10 years, insurance companies have done far worse in California than nationally. California experienced 9 of the 10 largest wildfires in the state's history. As a result, we are facing really tough questions. Can consumers get insurance they need? Can they get it today? And the answer is, in all honesty, no. Today, because climate change impacts are accelerating, we need to take action to expand insurance availability over the next 10 years. So let's talk about how we got here to this point in California. For the past 4 years, we have consistently been monitoring and analyzing the status and direction of insurance availability trends here in California. The FAIR Plan has doubled to 3% of the market, becoming the insurer of first resort for many Californians and not the last resort as it is intended to be. A growing FAIR Plan is really a big problem for our state because the FAIR Plan policyholders are required to pay more for less coverage, and concentrating the highest risk properties under the FAIR Plan increases the chance that they will be unable to afford a catastrophic. So it's really important to understand and underscore this point. If the FAIR Plan goes insolvent, insurance companies are on the hook for the unpaid FAIR Plan losses. While this hasn't happened in nearly 30 years, this uncertainty is still driving insurance companies to further limit coverage to at-risk Californians. A growing FAIR plan creates risk for the entire insurance market. As a result of concentration in California, the credit rating agency AM Best has downgraded outlooks for the top 12 companies like State Farm, AAA, and Mercury. And there is a critical fact to know. Unlike public utilities, which are required to provide coverage for all residents and businesses, under Prop 103, insurance companies can legally refuse to write insurance unless they're able to meet 100% consumer claims, cover their expenses, and earn a fair return. Everyone is harmed if an insurance company goes insolvent because it cannot pay its claims. My job as the state's insurance regulator is to make sure that that does not happen. Meanwhile, rate filings have gotten more complex and can take longer than 6 months to approve. And one entity can unreasonably prolong rate filings. No other state has. California's current regulatory framework does not meet our current needs. We need to update regulations and have them be more focused and on current market conditions in order to effectively protect consumers. So our California Sustainable Strategy is the result of meeting with California homeowners, business owners, fire chiefs, agents, realtors, homeowners associations, summer camps, farmers and ranchers, and many other insurance consumers across the state. We have held meetings in all 58 counties since 2019. This is unprecedented in the history of our department. The changes I am announcing today are aimed to modernize our insurance market and to better protect consumers. A modern, sustainable insurance market incentivizes safety and reduces risks. It does not retreat from high-risk areas, but instead utilizes long-term strategy to continue providing coverage to consumers. And here are the executive actions and reforms we are taking. 1, we will increase availability of insurance in wildfire distressed areas. Using our prior approval rate authority, insurance companies will write no less than 85% of their statewide market share in wildfire distressed areas. This is a historic agreement between the department and insurance companies. Today, there are parts of the state with no insurance company consumers call, and the only option is the FAIR plan. That will change under this agreement. Under this agreement, a company will write on average of 85% of its statewide market share in wildfire distressed areas, reversing the trend of a growing FAIR plan and closing the insurance gap. My department wildfire distressed areas using a data-driven approach. The second important part of this plan is we will return the FAIR plan policyholders back to the traditional insurance, with first priority given to hardened homes and businesses following my Safer from Wildfires regulation. And under a new law, we now have a FAIR plan clearinghouse program for both residential and commercial markets that can help facilitate this action. The clearinghouse is a list of policies that companies can take out of the FAIR plan to reduce its overall numbers. This helps homeowners and businesses, including our farmers and our ranchers in the California Farm Bureau Federation, who are joining me today, who sponsored that bill. Thank you again. Our Farm Bureau President, Jamie Johansson's here, and we worked our tails off to get that done. So thank you again for being here. The next important element of the plan addresses the climate crisis. I will introduce regulation to utilize forward-looking catastrophe models, prioritizing wildfire safety, mitigation, and transparency. California, as you all know, is experiencing increased heat, climate-intensified wildfires, and an increase over the past several years in the number of homes and businesses in the wildland-urban interface. Effectively addressing climate change requires new risk assessment strategies that keep insurance available. We are looking at holding workshops and meeting with stakeholders on catastrophe modeling in order to draft regulations that allow long-term sustainability of coverage and rates throughout the state. Forward-looking models must recognize the clear benefits of investing in our governor and the legislature that they have been making around wildfire safety, including home hardening, fuel reduction, and prescribed fires. We have a clear template for how this is going to final safer from wildfires regulation, requiring insurance companies to offer discounts and increase transparency on our wildfire risk scores. Again, the regulation first of its kind in the country to mandate that insurance companies offer discounts for home hardening. We will take the input from the public and put our public safety interest and make sure that that there's insurance access first, as we did in that process as well. It'll be a full and transparent, open process. Another important element of stabilizing our marketplace in the face of climate change is critical. We will also explore allowing California-only reinsurance cost. Let me say that again, California-only reinsurance cost. Reinsurance is a tool that many insurance companies are using to manage their climate risk and continue writing policies. But I want to underscore that Californians will not pay for the cost of hurricanes, fires, and floods across the nation and around the world. Under my agreement, companies wishing to use these new risk assessment tools must agree to increase and maintain the writing in wildfire distressed areas in our state. That's the 85% requirement I just talked about, and increasing writing and removing people from the FAIR Plan. Turning to the FAIR Plan, I will continue modernizing the FAIR Plan to expand coverage limits to 20 million per structure. This closes the gaps for our HOAs, our affordable housing, infill development, agribusiness, who also have been having a hard time finding insurance coverage. And I will protect the FAIR Plan's long-term solvency by implementing our department's proposal to increase financial stability, governance, planning, and claims handling for consumer complaints. These actions are all needed while our market reforms take hold. Talk about the enforcement of this agreement and how essential it is. My department's oversight of the insurance marketplace has saved consumers billions of dollars and protected the public's interest. And our insurance experts will have the tools to implement and enforce these new rules. Specifically, the Department of Insurance will continue to control on rate review, catastrophic modeling, and California-only reinsurance, guaranteeing public input and compliance with our transparency laws. The rate agreements we reach will be binding, increasing and maintaining writing, as well as meeting clear targets to depopulate the FAIR Plan. Our Department of Insurance experts retain rate filing control. We will enforce the requirement for insurance companies to submit a complete rate filing application with all the information needed by the department analyst. This will provide our experts complete data they need to timely review a rate change application. As well as CDI will provide data reconciliation tool to both assist and incentivize insurance companies to provide more complete rate filings up front with clear direction from the department's rate regulation experts. We are going to be hiring more analysts. We are hiring more analysts in our rate regulation branch to strengthen our oversight and protect the interest of consumers. And with the budget bill just signed by our governor, we will have additional staffing to implement these important regulatory changes. Now, earlier I talked about the role of public, and I want to underscore this point. Proposition 103 allows for public participation in the rate review process. But currently, one entity is involved in nearly 75% of all intervened rate filings, materially benefiting from a process that is meant for a broader public participation. We need intervener reform to make sure that we have more interveners from the communities that are affected and who truly reflect our diverse communities across our state. We are taking 2 steps in this direction. First, I am increasing transparency involving interveners. Today, we are making prior filings and compensation awards of interveners more public and accessible on our website, which will familiarize other potential interveners with the process and thereby encourage others to participate. It is important that we are transparent about the intervener process and the costs companies pass on to consumers. Second, my department will allow interveners to raise those issues that are relevant to the rate approval process and not have any that not and not and that not have been flagged by the department's experts. This is more focused, efficient approach will strengthen the existing rate application process and consumer interest and will help stop unreasonable delays. Lastly, we will increase public reporting by my department, the governor, and the legislature with periodic progress reports on insurance availability, rulemakings, and fair plan depopulation efforts. This is critical to monitor our progress. And our timeline is immediate and urgent. I am directing my department to complete all these reforms by December 2024. It is important to understand that we from scratch. These actions build on changes I have undertaken since 2019, moving in the direction of a more modern and resilient marketplace. We have moved forward on wildfire actions and are responding to climate change like never before. And I am proud that the department is leading the way not only in our nation, but in our country. I also want to take a moment to thank our consumer champions at the Department of Insurance who protect the public's interest every single day, our rate regulation experts and attorneys who scrutinize insurance companies' rate filings and stop harmful practices, our consumer services specialists who help people recover after disasters and make sure that their claims are paid fairly, our outreach and consumer services teams who meet with consumers every day in every part of our state. Thank you for being innovative and embarking on this efforts with me. We could never have gotten to this point without the buy-in of the incredible workforce of the Department of Insurance. Let me be clear, we would never face this array of challenges and all of them at the same time. Today, we are meeting that moment. Modernizing our insurance market is not going to be easy or happen overnight. We are in really uncharted territory and we must make difficult choices. When the world is changing rapidly, it is critical to make clear where you stand. For me, as the state's insurance regulator, it's on the side of creating safer communities and a sustainable insurance marketplace in the face of our ever-changing climate and financial risk. Thank you. We'll now take questions if there's any. Go ahead.
So about this rule change by allowing insurance companies to consider climate risk and look into the future, are you concerned that that'll cause rates to go up really dramatically?
It's gonna allow us to modernize the way we look at risk, and it also is gonna help us in terms and help consumers be able to calculate, because currently we don't have the ability to see the mitigation that they've had. So for years now, if you've mitigated your property, that mitigation and that risk reduction hasn't taken into account into your rate. So it works both ways. We're going to be able to hone in on those properties that have done the mitigation and make sure that our rate analysts look at that and appropriately price the risk for that individual, especially if they've done the hardening. So it's a tool that we need in the department as well.
And the models, this catastrophic model, I know that the regulations haven't been written yet. Do you think those models should be public?
Absolutely, and we're going to invoke and through the entire process, make sure that we have a public process so that we take all that into account. So, and the other important thing is that the department will be able to verify these models to make sure they're accurate. So, distinction now that we currently do not have. Go ahead.
In terms of this modeling, you told my paper, the Sacramento Bee, in last year that allowing this modeling doesn't reduce the risk. What changed your mind?
It allows us to be more clear about where the risk is and to allow us to verify. I think what changed in my opinion was we can no longer rely on historical data. In doing that, we're actually putting consumers and communities in danger. We need to be able to follow the science. We need to be able to use technology, but we also need to verify that. And that's what we guarantee in this process. So now with those guarantees, I feel confident that we'll not only be able to verify, they'll be transparent, and they'll be able to use to actually help consumers and hopefully incentivize them to mitigate their properties along with the discounts that we've created so that they know that they're gonna be, the risk is gonna be appropriately priced because now we're gonna be able to take in their mitigation.
With your discussions with the insurers, the major insurers, I mean, has there been any assurances, hey, Commissioner, State Farm, Allstate, we will be back in California at X date or year?
So it's going to take time. So the agreement that we've been able to get to say that 85% of their market now will be come in specifically in the wildfire distressed areas is a massive win, especially for our communities that have been sent in the FAIR plan. So that's a historic agreement. Of course, we're gonna wait to make sure that these regulations get done. This is why I want to make sure we get it done within the year, so that then they could submit their rate filings now and move quickly on writing again, or continue to write new business in California, prioritizing our most sensitive communities that have been unfortunately sent to the FAIR plan, coupled with the obligation now that they're going to have to depopulate the FAIR plan, right? So this is a great day for consumers as we're able to give them more availability and get them out of the FAIR plan into the traditional insurance market.
Did you need the governor's executive order today to do any of this?
The executive order allows us to move quickly as we set these regulations and allow us to make sure that as we're moving forward, we have that sense of urgency. And so it kind of puts a responsibility on all of us to get moving quickly and get this done. And again, this is why we want to be able to move in a way that's transparent, that's open, but with a sense of urgency. And his executive order allows us to do that. Go ahead.
Certainly, you've talked with homeowners all across the state these past 4 years. You know, a lot of them are struggling. Their insurance costs are going up. This news may come as encouraging to them, but like you said, you have to be realistic. This is not going to happen overnight. What words do you have for homeowners who are struggling to keep insurance, find insurance, paying out the nose for the FAIR plan? What's the timeline you're looking at? When might they see relief?
You know, you're absolutely right. And this is why we want to caution and say this is going to take us time. But also putting some responsibility on the department to get these regulations done within a year, which many of you who have covered, the regulatory process knows it takes much longer, hence why the governor's executive order helps us, because there is a sense of urgency. But I'll tell you, even talking to people all throughout the state, they want options within the admitted market. They want to get out of the FAIR plan as quickly as possible, as we do. And so I think once they understand that we're getting this historic commitment to write 85% of the total market share of these companies in these communities, simultaneously depopulating the FAIR plan, if you've mitigated your property, now not only do we give them a plan and a timeline, but we give them the incentive to spend resources to harden their home, which we know saves lives, saves communities, and saves their investment.
And of course, in order for them to get that savings from the home hardening, there need to be insurance companies to write to.
Exactly. To affordability if we don't tackle the availability issue. And so that's what we're doing today. Go ahead.
A consumer watchdog plan they released when the legislature was going through negotiation suggested a land use commission to deal with building in high-risk fire zones, and obviously that's still ongoing. Places like Paris.
Well, that's a important consideration. We have to rethink where we build and how we build and what materials we're using. I've been very upfront about that. But what we're also seeing though is, for example, a community in Orange County that I visited that meets all the standard codes could still not find insurance to cover those properties. And so the fact is that we all need to work together. If we're going to build, we need to build to the highest standards, and insurance has to be available in order for it to work. This is why I'm proud to have the support of the realtors who understand that we have to bring prices down, and in order for us to sell homes, they need to find insurance, right? So all this is in play. But I really think the legislature, we're going to work together to figure out on what are the latest building materials. What are the latest codes that we need to adopt? And we're working on this at the national level too, at the Association of Insurance Commissioners as well, because we need to rethink how we build and where we build.
Can you also talk about, like you just mentioned, those negotiations with lawmakers having a deal that fell apart at the 11th hour? So can you kind of talk about how that shaped up? And it seemed like you were very involved in that.
Absolutely. I mean, major components of that I announced today, and I think the great thing about those discussions is that we were able to really have frank discussions about how important and what reality is in terms of our insurance market in California. I welcome them having hearings across the state because guess what? They're going to hear the exact same stories I've heard. A teacher losing her home because her debt ratio flipped. She's paying more for insurance than for her house. A vintner losing, insurance for their storage, not knowing what they're going to do. Affordable housing projects in downtown LA stalled because they can no longer find insurance in the admitted market. And the more that the legislature gets involved, I think it's going to be great because it's important that we all understand that this is a real crisis that we're in. And again, these are all global factors that are leading us to where we're at today. And today, I think we're doing a good job of meeting that moment with the executive order from the governor and these important reforms and changes that we're announcing.
And Commissioner, I've got a question from the Wall Street Journal who's not here. So let me give you these. And also, if you can hear this question, but if you can repeat questions, folks watching on the live
Oh.
stream, that would help. That's
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So can you explain the 85% requirement a little more in layman's terms and explain how it will work in a high wildfire risk area? And then there's a follow-up from that.
So it's really not that difficult. It is meaning that of their insurance company's entire footprint, 85% moving forward when these regulations are in place and adopted, 85% of that portfolio, they are committed to writing in wildfire distressed areas. And that's the big piece of the agreement today for consumers, guaranteeing them availability in the market.
Okay, a follow-up. When will that specific measure begin implementation and be fully implemented?
Our goal is to fully implement. When this would be implemented will be I've set the deadline to my department to implement all these changes by December 2024.
And just final, and basically, does that mean whichever insurance companies want to operate at all in California must abide by this 85%?
If they want to, yes, essentially. And if they want to use those two components, which is the California only reinsurance and to be able to use catastrophic models, they have to adhere to that 85% and the fair plan depopulation. And it's important to note too that if you approve a rate of a company that has committed to doing these two things and we find out they haven't, we have full authority to claw back that rate. So we keep them honest and we keep them on path to the 85% with the depopulation of the fair plan under our current statutory authority.
Follow-up question about that. 5% sounds like that would be great for homeowners in these wildfire-prone areas, but that sounds like that would be a big lift for these companies. In your talks with these insurance companies, are you hopeful that the forward-looking modeling and the reinsurance, California-only reinsurance, will be incentive enough to get them to start writing new policies and coming back?
Absolutely, that is the agreement. Great, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, especially on the short notice.